a particularly nasty version of stored cross-site scripting. Effectively, if you go to the Twitter Twitter profile for any person, so for me, if you went to twitter.com/mmurray, you would see on the top right-hand corner there's a little description, there's a little bio and a location. Turned out that the location field was cross-site scriptable. So some kid figured out that if he put stored scripting in the location field, he could then infect any Twitter user who visited his page and infect their page with the same script. It was literally a worm that, effectively a cross-site scripting-based worm that travels from Twitter profile to Twitter profile anytime you viewed someone's Twitter profile and you were also logged in, right, because it used your stored session. So, this is the kind of stuff that a decent web app pen test would have found. But again, these are sites that aren't being developed. First of all, they're sites that are being developed on the cheap. Twitter has no business model. They have no revenue model. They have no revenue for all intents and purposes. So where are they getting the money to hire foreground security to come in and do a web app pen test? They're not. Their VCs might decide that that's an okay idea, but it's not going to be an okay idea until it's a big enough deal that it causes them some pain. So that's causing them a huge number of issues. Also, the fact that this is all just a free-for-all is causing huge issues. The whole thing about social networking is that most of these things are open platforms. They have web APIs that allow pretty much any developer who wants to interact with these services. Facebook is the sort of golden child of all this. Anybody can pretty much develop a Facebook app that interacts with a Facebook profile. And, sure, you can report a malicious app, but if you don't know the app's malicious, Facebook can't possibly track all of the apps that everyone writes to make sure that every app that comes to their site is not doing anything malicious. It's not like the old days. The idea of centralized control is anathema to these people. It's anathema to the whole idea of social networking. Social networks don't have centralized control by definition. So you've got this free-for-all of app developers and users and people doing bad things, and no centralized control that's really doing a great job of protecting against it. And we're really only just seeing the beginning of this, because this problem is really not going to start getting exploited. It's the old Mac antivirus problem. Up to this point, we haven't really hit enough of a tipping point that there's been a whole lot of people doing focused vulnerability research against these sites. The other problem is it's harder to do focused vulnerability research against these sites because as a researcher, you're in a live environment. Web app research is sort of shady and difficult because if I want to attack a Windows box, I can stick a Windows box in a VM and attack it all day long and not violate any laws. If I want to attack Facebook, I have to attack Facebook. And, prosecution could ensue. Makes the research environment very difficult. So the only people, that's a blanket statement. The majority of the people who are going to be willing to go out and find 0 days in these sites are the people who are going to be willing to exploit them. It makes for a whole lot of difficulty. And now that these sites are becoming really fertile environments for attacks and having enough and being target rich enough to be valuable to those bad people, we're going to start seeing more and more of this over the coming 12 months. I don't think there's any question that we're at the beginning of the problem of seeing social networking sites attacked by bad people and those attacks getting publicized. What we're not at the beginning of is the other side of that issue. And the other side of that issue is that social networks have been used to exploit the users of social networks, not because of the technology, not through the social networking technology, but just through the people that are on the social networks. If you think about the way social networks are designed, the whole idea is it's a network of trust. The fact that you're building a network based on social connection and trust builds in some of the automatic elements of influence that allow people to be exploited through social engineering. You know, one of the things that is hardest in blind social engineering is getting someone to trust you. But if you're part of their social network, they already have that implicit belief that, you know, if I've only added my friends to this circle and the information is coming from that circle, it must be valid. There's an implicit level of trust that comes with your friends on Facebook. It comes with knowing, you know, if I get a message from friends on Facebook, I'm okay. I actually read a story recently about a scammer who was using Facebook, and what they were doing was that they had exploited, they had gained access to a few Facebook accounts, and I didn't hear who the attacker was. Sounded Nigerian to me. I hope that's not prejudicing against the Nigerians out there, but it's sort of a Nigerian type scam. They had used Facebook to compromise some accounts and then sent messages to all the friends of all those accounts saying, I really need your help. I'm trapped in London. I just got my wallet and passport stolen. Can you wire me $500 to this Western Union? Well, here's the thing. If I sent you that email from an email address you didn't know, you would just toss it out. You would go, dude, that's spam. If it comes from Facebook, where it comes from a friend you trust, it appears to be from them, and you're not used to having Facebook spam inappropriately, and you trust the person that sent it, you're very likely to do it. You're very likely to go, oh my God, my friend is in trouble. Let me send him $500. And I'm sure that these scammers are getting away with it. Not a huge problem yet, because back to the first part, there's not an easy way to compromise a large number of Facebook accounts. But frankly, it shows why these sites are able to, actually, funny story, happened to me this morning. Somebody I follow on Twitter had tweeted, and actually I'm just going to pull back and find the actual note. Somebody I follow on Twitter had sent a really weird message out on Twitter. And he had said that his message was, hold on, just quickly finding it, lost 38 pounds in 2 months by using the principles on this site. It sent you to a weight loss site. And I thought, dude, that's weird. I know this guy. I didn't know he was. I didn't know he was on a diet. I didn't know whatever. But I went to the site and checked it out. I sent him a message on Twitter and said, dude, you lost 38 pounds in 2 months. What else did you do? Because losing 38 pounds in 2 months is like, you know, it's significant weight loss. I mean, it's big deal weight loss, right? You know, the healthy weight loss is like 2 pounds a week. And you're talking about more like, you know, 5 or 6 pounds a week. He said, I asked him what else he changed it, and he said the biggest change was my password. I think a spammer got access to my account. So his account got compromised. Spammer put out a single spam message on his account, and I mean, I trust the guy. So I went to check out what he said. You know, this is the value of social networks from a social engineering perspective, is there's an implicit trust of the people that you interact with. And if that can be co-opted by a malicious user, whether a spammer or an attacker, you know, very frankly, that link could have been a tiny URL to a malware download site, to a drive-by download site, and I would have been owned. You know, and dude, I do this for a living. Not that I particularly mind being owned, because my machine wouldn't matter. But at the same time, that is the violation. That is why there's a huge fertile ground for social engineering on these sites. The other side of this is privacy. You know, that's the security implication from a people perspective, but there's a privacy implication as well. The sites haven't figured out how to protect the privacy of their users, and for the most part, they've thrown up their hands. Facebook's gotten their asses handed to them repeatedly for doing things that screwed up their user privacy. I mean, the one that blows my mind, and this is actually still active. This is still a default setting in Facebook. that I urge you all, if you're on Facebook, to go turn